so good to be here. I'm fresh from San Francisco, so I'm getting that Figma juice early in the year, so I'm very excited about that. Thanks to Figma and the amazing content team for hosting us and setting up this amazing conversation. I know we're going to have a good time. We're very prepared. To set the stage, last fall I was at a business conference for social impact, startups, the real disruptory kinds of conversations, when one of the presenters said this, that sent a ripple of agreement throughout the entire room. When you attempt innovation in a legacy environment, the organization's immune system attacks you. Why? Because institutions are built to resist change and withstand risk. So lots of nods and applauds, and we're going to change the world, which is true. But it set up an interesting tension in the room. Is that really true? Does it really always have to be true? What are the biggest and most established companies thinking about these things of change and opportunity and how industries transform, and where might big legacy organizations be uniquely poised to deliver, to influence better solutions, and when do things work well and when do things not? So I'm very happy that the two of you are here to talk about this with me. And we're going to start big and get very detailed here. And Giuseppe, if I can press you into service to start us off here. Let's talk about the transformation of your industry, specifically the auto industry. And then we're going to get into a little bit about how you work.
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Great public. Definitely the automotive industry is undergoing a radical transformation from mechanical roots to digital future. And for us, Volvo, being focused on our safety heritage, we need to blend these principles with cutting-edge technologies like software-defined vehicles, electrification. And for a 100-year-old company like ours, integrating a legacy infrastructure with electrification, with sensor data, with assisted driving is definitely an incredible challenge. And at the same time, it offers us an opportunity that is already provided to many other companies to really continuously bring value to people that choose to put their trust in our brand through software updates in the vehicle. So definitely a space that is being disrupted and changed by technological innovation.
And any Volvo drivers here? Some Volvo drivers in it. We drive. My husband has a Volvo. Like our family has, but it's his baby. Tell me, before we jump to The Economist, how big is your design footprint inside the Volvo? How big is your team?
We have quite a large design function in general, and UX within that is around 200 people, including researchers, content designers, UX and visual design, prototypers.
Adam, same question for you. So when I say your industry, it's really a hybrid between media and journalism is really probably how you think about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think the main thing that's been happening is this shift towards digital as being the way that most consumers just think about enjoying journalism now. That's been a big shift that we've seen. And that's played out at The Economist, where our digital subscribers has been where we've found most of our growth over the last few years. And as well as that, our mobile app is where our most highly engaged users are, and they come back to that pretty much daily. So that's been that big shift, but really as a company to enable that, we've deliberately invested in our digital transformation to make that switch. And really what I mean by that is investing in our tech capabilities, bringing in the right people and processes, and equally evolving our product to meet those needs. So that's one aspect, it's been a shift towards digital. Then another one is just how there's lots of different formats now that people just expect of journalism. It's not just the written words anymore. And for us, it's really about kind of meeting people where they are and with the formats that they expect. Many people think of The Economist as this weekly publication, but our digital experience is actually so much more than that now.
Yeah.
We've been leaning into, we have audio narrated articles that you can listen on the go. We have podcasts that are a big part of our experience now. And much more recently, we've introduced short-form video as just another format that people find really engaging within the app, and we've created a dedicated area for it. So yeah, there's been a lot of change, and mostly it's gravitating towards this digital-first approach to journalism.
With the very specific Economist voice, trusted voice in mind, which has got to be tough. We're going to dig into that a little bit more. So how have teams inside your organizations embraced this change? And from a practice point of view, how does this play out? Giuseppe, I'd like to come back to you on this.
Change is never easy. It takes time, and learning new skills or learning to work in different ways, abandoning old mindsets really requires an effort, and oftentimes people just resist to it, right? We, as a company, we obviously have to adapt to challenging conditions and always changing. There is uncertainty, there is ambiguity, so as an organization, we try to learn, for example, from those that in the company that have applied successful methodologies or new ways of working, and try to adopt using them as beacons. We have in design particularly this concept of alliances where we converge from different silos, different departments around a common mission that could be aligning the brand expression around the consumer journey, or creating a system of systems, or digital accessibility, for example. And this puts people that usually don't work together, that reports to different people with their local incentives, aligned around one common mission and a vision. These are, in complex and large organizations, really important meta structures that don't emerge naturally. Collaboration needs to be provoked.
Yeah, interesting. So do you mind if I ask you a leadership-y question follow-up on that? Because what you described is really the dream when organizations say that they have a big problem to solve, like the pandemic or a big opportunity facing them. They want to bring together what they call a dream team or a tiger team or whatever it is. But it sounds like this is built into how you like to operate at Volvo. What have you learned about setting up people for success if they're newcomers to the team, or even newcomers to the company, or newcomers to a new line of business idea?
Success is never guaranteed. For me, the message is being relentless and being that annoying designer voice that tries to bring everyone and be the glue in between people that maybe are focused on their, vertical interests, and
right.
So I always try to give myself as a model that type of behavior, and try to inspire it in the people that work with me.
So Adam, same question in practice. But as you were talking earlier, it sounded to me like everyone's just going to have to get very technical very quickly.
Yeah, and maybe just to set a bit of context on The Economist and my team. So we've got 15 designers in the team, and roughly the mixture is half kind of work on our content experience, so that's enabling people to find something to watch, read, or listen to. And roughly the other half is kind of focused on transactional journeys. We're a subscriptions business, so it's kind of being able to pick a subscription that's right for you, managing your account, and potentially cancelling. But I guess when I joined, I inherited a model that, this was 4 or 5 years ago, where we had separate UX and UI function. So we would always pair a UX designer and a UI designer to work on a project. And my background and what I'd seen working in my previous roles, and generally where I saw the industry was going, was around product design as a full stack function, being able to work as much across that spectrum as possible. And so that was the change that I kind of wanted to bring about within the company to really hit our goals. We're 15 people. We need to work on quite a number of things, so I needed more of that generalist approach. But to make that happen, that required upskilling. I inherited a team, and I had to upskill those folks and the expectations of the role and how it needed to shift. But equally was really conscious on how to grow the team. And so, we grew the team from 8 to 16 over that time, but really focusing in on the different kinds of people we could hire. So making sure that people weren't just from the media industry, we're trying to hire people who had agency background that could bring that kind of mindset, people who'd been in startups. Because I was really after the different perspectives that those folks could bring to the work that we were doing. But ultimately, to get that buy-in, I kind of used contractors to begin with to basically prototype the team. I brought in specialists that I had worked with and I knew were the right kind of skill sets and approaches to work on the projects that we had coming up, and kind of chose pilot projects that were really visible, that were driving really key things as part of the business, to show what good looked like and to manage expectations around this is what good product design can be at a company like ours. And that gave me the mandate then to build out the team in the shape that really helped us work on all the things that we have done over the last few years. So that was quite a big change, but ultimately using prototyping skills, but with people instead of pixels.
Well, that is also the dream too. That's the leadership dream, isn't it? Is to have people be able to think this way. So to piggyback on that and to think from inside a team to departments, there's marketing, there's research, there's all kinds of ways that organizations work these days that requires everyone to stitch together. What have you learned about aligning all of these bigger departments and who's outside of the organization? You mentioned contractors. There's probably a whole ecosystem that you have to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that one, it's been that shift from kind of handing off between departments to a much closer collaboration between everyone involved. So the example to kind of bring that to life would be a few years ago we launched Economist Podcasts Plus, which is our subscription for our podcasts that you can listen to on Apple Music and Spotify, and we were essentially bringing that behind the paywall. And that means from a design perspective, we have to, our content-based designers need to figure out the experience of creating a really good on-platform experience. So what I mean is being able to find the right podcast that you want to listen to and build out the feature set that is on par with what you would expect from other podcasting platforms. But equally, the other side of the coin was, before then, we'd only ever offered one type of subscription, which is our digital one, and you can add print there as well. And so all of our transactional journeys had to shift to accommodate for a completely new product that we were launching. And so that required kind of everything to be rethought of in that new context. But equally, that means we have to work with all the different departments as well, right? This was a company-wide initiative to pull this off. And so we were working really closely with our editorial colleagues on the best ways to bring their content to life within our products, through to our marketing folks on the go-to-market strategy and how we would launch that proposition.
Yeah.
And equally, all the commercial people around pricing, like how do we price this and bring that to market? And the context at the time was there weren't very many people of our kind of size, media organizations of our size, doing this. And so there really was no playbook that existed. And so we were figuring it out as we went along. But really the core part of making that work was using the design skill set of visualizing all those journeys, right? Lots of our users and our subscribers experience basically the way that we're set up internally. Mm-hmm. Lots of teams work on little parts of the experience. But as soon as you start mapping those out, you basically get to see the seams between all of the teams and experience that from a subscriber perspective. And being able to show that map and to all those folks involved from editorial and marketing and the commercial teams, spots the opportunities to improve and the areas where we could smooth that out. So really it's a lot about collaboration, but equally using the design skill set that we have to bring everyone together through making intangible stuff real.
So I know we're going to talk about this when we predict the future, which is always my favorite part of any panel, but I'm always struck by how listening to people talk about how they do their jobs and how they're stitching things together, it's career advice for people who want to do your job, like get good at these various things. So thinking big, broad across the organization, how are you thinking about aligning departments and the big picture of how what you're doing, which is incredibly complex, is expressed across the organization?
Well, there's no other way of doing this, right? The level of complexity for building these types of experiences is so big that no single function can do it in isolation. So We started a few years ago by ultimately creating a center of gravity around user-centric practices by bringing all UX and design together. And today, definitely, the way we work with engineering and product partners and other functions makes possible for us to really have a voice in the entire product life cycle on the consumer journey. And again, it is a relentless work of explaining and telling the story of our disciplines, explaining why user centricity is still a very important principle to drive decision and bring value to people that ultimately buy our products. So we try to guide and facilitate cross-functional collaboration and align our language also to our product partners. When we talk about metrics and usability or accessibility or other experience metrics or brand visual alignment, we need to tie those metrics with what's important for business, cost reduction, generating revenue, generating leads. So we need that kind of fluency today to have a seat at the table, if we can use that that expression, and contribute to defining what value is.
I love it. I'm glad you use seat at the table because it's something that comes up in the design industry a lot, and it feels like we've lost that over the years. But you know, when I was talking to you and preparing with you, Adam, you talked quite a bit about product design as a strategic discipline within the organization. I was wondering if you could expand on that because it was pretty inspiring.
Yeah, I think to get to that kind of level of influence, I think you have to start with getting the foundations right first to build trust. And so what I mean by that, and as a parallel, our editorial team have a written style guide. Something from The Economist is that most of our journalism comes from a singular voice. It comes from The Economist voice. And they have that documented in a style guide that helps anyone kind of create content that feels like it's coming from The Economist. And that's for real coherency and consistency and for quality. And so the direct mirror for that is us and our design system, right? Those are a set of components that allow us to create a very coherent and consistent experience for all of our subscribers. And so having that foundation is really important. What I mean by that is a quality experience helps to build trust. Because ultimately, we want people to read The Economist and know that it's rigorously fact-checked, it's independent journalism, and we want to mirror as much as that as we can in our experience. But equally, we don't want that experience to distract from ultimately just consuming that content. So if we look at it from a visual perspective, The Economist brand is pretty stripped back, and deliberately so. There's red, there's black and white, and a very limited typographic palette. And when you have that limited range, the details really matter. And so an example of that is last year we created our own bespoke typeface that enabled us to look at our 180-year history, so to build something that's based off our brand and feels like Economisty. But equally, we'll create an amazing read. Like, that's one of the core things that people do at The Economist is read our content, and it can be quite dense, and there's quite a lot of it, so we want that reading experience to be great. We had a post on the Figma blog that explains a little bit more about how we went about that process. But it wasn't just about cost saving, it was really about thinking about the quality experience and building trust with our audience. And so I feel like once you have that foundation, right, you've built your trust with your audience, but equally you're building that trust internally with your stakeholders and other people you're collaborating with, then I feel like the design mindset and design approach really helps to build that influence. And so things that I'm thinking about is how you collaborate with others and bring people together. Like, my experience before joining The Economist was in an agency, and a lot of that is about how you bring people together, kick off projects in the right kind of way. So workshops and collaborative sessions, and bringing people's voices to the right place, letting their voices be heard, but equally driving to an outcome is an incredible skill that designers can have to bring people together and facilitate those conversations. So I think that's one key area that you can help with influence. Another one is visualizing. You can use prototypes as provocations. You don't always have to be right to begin with, but having something to point at, whether it's a sketch, a rough design, or any of the stuff we've seen today around a prototype, it gets you closer to the thing it should be, or the thing it could be, much, much quicker than abstract talking about things. And then finally, I think designers have a great skill in looking at a system and being able to zoom out. And part of the role that I see as design is joining the dots between the teams. It's like I said, everyone experiences that as one whole thing. And so designers that can be able to visualize systems, be able to join those dots and enable other people to spot those opportunities, I think are key to being able to spot new places that you can go to or improve your products.
Well, you slept just shy of calling it a superpower, and it sure is fun to talk that way again. So thank you for walking us through that. This is the part of the conversation when we turn to AI, which is on everybody's mind. And Giuseppe, this is where I turn back to you. I know that this is you brighten up on the Zoom call or in person every time AI is mentioned. It is something that you think a lot about, and it's currently being utilized in some really interesting ways. Can you walk us through some of that?
Yeah, so AI is on everyone's mouth, and there's plenty of AI in here. I'm sure someone may be using it right now. But at Volvo, we have two ways of looking at this or talking about this. In our products, we are definitely using cutting-edge technologies. We are using Gaussian splatting to simulate millions of incidents to train our models and make sure that our safety promise is really solid and people have confidence when they buy our products. On the other side, we have an organization that is 100-year-old. We want to create efficiencies, new ways of working, get value propositions out faster. But at the same time, while we are surrounded by all these opportunities, all these new tools, they are very democratically accessible to everyone. We still need to look at ethical concerns. We need to look at data privacy. We need to look at loss of IP. And for a large machine like Volvo, managing this excitement with a handbrake is a very interesting exercise. But I think it's going to be transformative and definitely have an impact on the future of the way we work.
Is there anything that you can share, any examples of where you've been successfully adopting AI in any capacity that is really making a difference? Or
let's say that we are experimenting definitely in the area of user research. We are looking at ways to increase accessibility compliance by using computer vision.
Got it.
We are looking into ways of reducing costs in the area of generating assets, car renders, or so these are some of the areas that are definitely beyond the common test summaries or getting help in Notion with putting together your thoughts or.
Perfect. Adam, same question. Where is AI playing out in your life at The Economist?
Yeah, so within the product, we've built out a brilliant kind of data and AI team that are helping us, first off, kind of content tagging, so adding structure to lots of the content that we've had and we have, basically to enable better and more personalized experiences. So being able to create better onward journeys and create, enable you to find the next thing that you're after. We've been experimenting a little bit with translation into different languages, and equally into summarizations as well, article summarizations. And in there's a space we just need to, and that's why we're experimenting with it, is that we have a high quality bar, and so it's about making sure that if you're doing language translation, that it still has the same meaning, and it still comes from that Economist voice. So we're experimenting in those spaces. But in terms of within the company and experimenting with AI, there's a really clear direction from everyone right up to the top about everyone needing to upskill in this area and to experiment. And we do have access to certain tools, and especially ones that come with this enterprise license, because you have to be careful about your data, you equally have to be careful about your intellectual property, and that these tools aren't being trained upon the things that you're putting in there from our kind of perspective and the company size that we are. But we do have access to those tools internally, a select few of them. And so some ways that the designers are using those in particular, I think it might fall into kind of two areas. One is around being able to look through large amounts of data or of data. So for instance, Notebook LM, some of the designers are using that to basically ask questions of things like accessibility guidelines and how that maps to our design system documentation. So things that you can quickly ask questions of without having to reach out to somebody else, and people can kind of self-serve on lots of kind of reports or data that they wish to kind of ask questions of. And then the other side is a bit around like a first draft mentality. So for instance, I use ChatGPT a lot to help me plan workshops. It helps me come up with good agendas and get my timings right, and I kind of bounce ideas off it to help me prepare for workshops or meetings. And equally, some of the designers have been experimenting with things like V0 or with Lovable, but it's mostly around, I just call it, it's kind of like a digital sketch. I would sketch in a pen and paper in my notepad, but it enables the designers to explore lots of different variations just to kind of quickly disregard or hone in on the areas that are most of use. Because the outputs are kind of okay with those things, but it gets you off the starting block.
So we're at the predict the future part of the stage of the conversation, which is always my favorite part. Just we touched on this with AI, and it's really clear that the future, we are going to have to be AI literate and really imaginative and really embrace it. You've made it very clear. But Giuseppe, I want to bring you in on this part too. How are you, from any point of view, whether it's product or organizational, the car, the driver, whatever it is that you're thinking about, what do you see around the corner, and what do you recommend that we look at too?
Predicting the future is not my thing, so
I know.
maybe I should ask ChatGPT.
Give me 5 years. Just give me anything. 5 minutes from now, whatever.
From a product perspective, I think what we will continue working on that is already happening in industries that don't have, let's say, the legacy of a physical product, but we now can, continuously improve the experience of something that you once bought, and your relationship with that brand was basically limited to either buying another car or getting serviced. Now we can push through NVIDIA and through our Superset tech stack. We can push over-the-air updates to send new experiences, increase the battery performance, and so this is definitely important for us as an industry, and AI is going to start also play an important role in that area. From an organizational standpoint is where, to me, is where the most interesting shifts will happen, and as we were discussing before, I think there will be the emergence of this new generalist that can execute with the right skill set, even trained through conversations with AI, executing from research to shipping pre-production code by using all of these tools together. So it's definitely going to redefine what a designer is or a product manager is, and maybe we will start shifting in terms of how do we call ourselves and what our roles are.
Well, that is interesting. And see, I didn't even make a flying car joke, and I really wanted to. So same question, Adam. We're almost out of time here. What does the future look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be echoing many points with prototyping and visualization kind of tools being quicker and easier to make. They're also going to be in the hands of more people. And so I think that will come down to then where the designer kind of wants to play in the product development process. There's still incredible value for designers to be able to execute brilliantly. All of these AI tools are trained on things of the past, and we're still creating new things. So there's still value in the designers being able to execute brilliantly, join those dots between what they're seeing in culture, and equally bringing that into the products that we create. But I think on the other side, you'll also see, and we've seen this trend play out a little bit through designers shifting towards product management in some instances. But yeah, I think we'll see designers getting earlier into the process as well around shaping what the products are and how they're coming through. But that means that designers kind of need to step up in terms of their business acumen, getting really closer to understanding how their business operates in order to use all of that mindset that I spoke about before, about visualization, collaboration is all key. But if you can come with a perspective and a point of view about how that delivers value for your business or where you're working, that's such a potent mix. And especially if you can then take some of that much, much closer to production. It's a heady mix.
Well, I mean, you two of you have described the legacy promise from the very beginning. It is a condenser of knowledge and history and insight, and building on that, you can get smarter very quickly. You can become more multidimensional very quickly and make more contributions more quickly, at least in theory. So given our discussion today, this is where we dazzle them with our takeaways before we say goodbye. Giuseppe, what is one key piece of advice you might want to leave us with?
I would say two things. Have a vision, continue having a vision, and also be happy about the small wins every day. It really helps you to see progress towards these grandiose things that we create for ourselves, for our teams, for our products. I like to do that, to stay anchored. And on the other side, given what's happening, this high uncertainty, volatility, I think the most important thing for us is to stay curious, to continue learning whatever comes at us. We are good at interpreting people's needs and finding solution to those needs, whatever the tools are, whatever the roles, whatever the companies we work for. So just stay relentless, just keep learning. I try to do that every day.
I love it. Same question. Got about a minute.
I think it's being able to both exist in two places at once.
Wow.
The time is on one hand, it's quite scary. There's a lot happening and there's a lot of change. But equally with that, there's a lot of opportunity. And I think it's really about the time to experiment, to play, to really lean in. Designers have great skill sets in terms of dealing with ambiguity and getting thrown into different scenarios and situations and thriving in that through collaboration, through making, through visualizing, through prototyping and working with others. So I'd just say, lean in. You've got to be experimenting. You've got to be pushing yourself forwards in this space. But it's a really exciting time.
And hug those journalists for us, please. We need them more than ever. So join me in thanking this wonderful panel. Thank you so much for this conversation. And it's lovely being with you all today. I love coming here, and we're all rooting for every one of you, too. So one of these days, Design Observer will be interviewing all of you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.